Hey, computational thinking. In this video, we're going to be talking about the Datetime library. The Datetime library is an internal Python library that lets us work with, drumroll, dates and times. That being said, even though it sounds pretty vanilla, it's one of the most important aspects of developing software that there is. So representing what day it is, and more specifically exactly what time it is, has a pretty big impact on software in general. There are many examples we can choose from, whether it's something as simple and kind of fun as creating like a countdown timer for a movie or game release, something like that, or as serious as the current time that's kept on like an intravenous fluid computer that's giving a patient medicine at a hospital. Obviously, it's critical that those times are governed and controlled down to the second to make sure that no one gets hurt or that people that get better from being sick. So date and time is super important, and thankfully Python implements date and time in pretty simple terms. So we're going to take a look at some examples of how we can use date time to solve some simple problems. And then you'll have an opportunity, if you choose, to work with Datetime for a final project. We'll talk a little bit more about that as the school year comes to a close. So with this particular problem, we're going to start with a simple question of how many total days are there between the end of winter break and today. And in order to solve this problem, the first thing that we have to do is import the Datetime library. And we're also going to import, we are importing Datetime. We're saying from the internal library Datetime, import date. To create a date object, I assign it to a variable. And what I'm assigning to a variable here is a date object with the year, month, and the day given. And then we'll assign to the today variable a date object with today's date. Once I've got this data, I'm actually able to do basic arithmetic on these two date objects. And as you can see, if I say today minus winter break, I get another object called a time delta. Now, that might be a little strange to you. It's probably clear that there are 121 days between today and winter break, but time delta is perhaps a foreign term. So a delta in math, or in lots of other mathematical contexts, for example, like economics, some other business contexts, really anything. Delta is used to signify change. And so a time delta means a change of 121 days. And we'll actually see soon how we can make our own time deltas if we want to have certain specific time and date changes. From the time delta, and in fact, I'm just going to go ahead and store this time delta in a variable called date difference. And when I reference that variable, I can also reference specific data like the days or the seconds. Now, in this case, there won't be any seconds because we're only comparing dates, not times. If we add the time factor to this date, which we will in just a minute, we'll be able to see that we can actually access data about the seconds and microseconds as well. But for now, they're just set to 0. And if I want to make a nice little string to print all this out, I can say with an F string, using the days attribute from my time delta, I can print off a string like that. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, so for this next problem, we just want to sort of prove that we can use this for any range of days. And the reason that we look at this problem is because the first problem, it's totally possible for a human being to count the number of days between now and when winter break ended. That's feasible. We could probably do that within a minute or less. However, to count the number of days between when Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley was released and the first Rickroll, which interestingly enough occurred over a radio station, not on the internet. Either way, counting the days between these two dates would actually be very challenging. We could certainly do it, but it would take a significant amount of time and effort to track down just how many days were between July 27th, 1987 and August 31st, 2006. Obviously, as we've just seen, we can use Python to help us solve this problem very quickly. And in this case, we're going to find this value down to the second. So we're going to create what's called a datetime object. A datetime object is very similar to what we created first with the date object. It just includes time. Now, if you don't actually set the time, it will default to 0. But in this case, we're going to set the time to 11:56 on August 31st, 2006, and then we will run this code, and we'll see that we get a time delta that has the seconds value set to 42,960. That means 42,960 seconds have elapsed, or had elapsed, on August 31st. So basically it's a number of days plus the number of seconds that have elapsed that day. That's what that seconds attribute means. Our last problem is trying to figure out if we are writing software that a doctor's office might use to give a patient a follow-up appointment. How could we do this effectively so that we can give the patient an appointment that's 30 days from now, and then also tell them what day of the week it will be? And if you think about it, if you're a patient, it's nice for you to be able to see like what day of the week it is exactly that you'd be coming back, because most of the time we want to know, what's going on in our schedule on a given day. Now, for this particular problem, when I want to add 30 days to a specific date, I'm going to use a time delta. And in order to use a time delta in the code, I need to import it. This is different than creating a time delta through arithmetic, right? We're not using any arithmetic with existing dates here. We're trying to create a new date based on 30 days from today. And as you can see, there's a really convenient way of representing today, like this moment right now, in datetime. We just simply say datetime.today. We can also use datetime.now. They behave very similarly. In this case, we're just going to use today. All right, and so now to represent 30 days from now, I'll simply take today and I will add it to a time delta of 30 days. That's pretty much the end of this video. In the next video, I'm going to show you how we can take that time value and print out a user or human readable string that achieves what we are going for here.